Hello, and welcome back to Baby Elias's stories. We now return to Jingo by Terry Pratchett, Part 2. Knuckles whitened, boots scraped impatiently. Captain Carrot bounced the ball once or twice. All right, lads. One more try, eh? And this time, no horseplay. William, what are you eating? The artful nudger scowled. No one knew his name. Kids he'd grown up with didn't know his name. His mother, if he ever found out who she was, probably didn't know his name. But Carrot had found out somehow. If anyone else had called him William, they'd be looking for their ear in their mouth. Chewing gum, mister. Have you brought enough for everybody? No, mister. Then put it away. There's a good chap. Now let's, Gavin, what's that up your sleeve? The one known as Scumbag Gav didn't bother to argue. It's a knife, Mr. Carrot. And I bet you brought enough for everybody, eh? 'S right, mister. Scumbag grinned. He was 10. Go on, put them on the heap with the others. Constable Shue looked over the wall in horror. There were about 50 youths in the wide alleyway. Average age in years, about 11. Average age in cynicism and malevolent evil, about 163. Although Ankh-Morpork football doesn't usually have goals in the normal sense, 2 had been nevertheless made at each end of the alley using the time-honored method of piling up things to mark where the post should be. 2 piles, one of knives, one of blunt instruments. In the middle of the boys, who were wearing the colours of some of the nastiest street gangs, Captain Carrot was bouncing an inflated pig's bladder. Constable Shue wondered if he ought to go and get help, but the man seemed quite at ease. Captain, he ventured. Oh, hello, Reg. We were just having a friendly game of football. This is Constable Shue, lads. 50 pairs of eyes said, We'll remember your face, copper. Reg edged around the wall and his eyes noted the arrow which had gone straight through his breastplate and protruded several inches from his back. There's been a bit of trouble, sir, said Reg. I thought I'd better fetch you. It's a hostage situation. I'll come right away. Okay, lads, sorry about this. Play amongst yourselves, will you? And I hope I'll see you all on Tuesday for the sing-song and sausage sizzle. Yeah, mister, said the artful Nedger. And Corporal Angua will see if she can teach you the campfire howl. Yeah, right, said Scumbag. But what do we do before we part? Said Carrot expectantly. The Bloods of the Scats and the Mohawks looked bashfully at one another. Usually they were nervous of nothing, it being a banishment matter to show fear in any circumstances. But when they'd variously drawn up the clan rules, no one had ever thought there'd be someone like Carrot. Glaring at one another with I'll kill you if you ever mention this expressions, they all raised the index finger of both hands to the level of their ears and chorused, Wib, wib, wib. Wob, 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 Carrot replied heartily. Okay, Reg, let's go. How'd you do that, Captain? said Constable Shoe as the watchman hurried off. Oh, you just raise both fingers like this, said Carrot. But I'd be obliged if you don't tell anyone, because it's meant to be a secret But they're thugs, Captain! Young killers! Villains! Oh, they're a bit cheeky, but nice enough boys underneath, when you take the time to understand. I heard they never give anyone enough time to understand. Does Mr. Vimes know you're doing this? He sort of knows, yes. I said I'd like to start a club for the street kids, and he said it was fine, provided I took them camping on the edge of some really sheer cliff somewhere in a high wind. But he always says things like that, and I'm sure we wouldn't have him any other way. Now, where are these hostages? It's at Vortin's again, Captain, but it's sort of worse than that. Behind them, the Scats and the Mohawks looked at one another warily. Then they picked up their weapons and edged away with care. It's not that we don't want to fight, their manner said. It's just that we've got better things to do right now, and so we're going to go away and find out what they are. Unusually for the docks, there was not a great deal of shouting and general conversation. People were too busy thinking about money. Sergeant Cullen and Corporal Nobbs leaned against a stack of timber and watched a man very carefully painting the name Pride of Ankh-Morpork on the prow of a ship. At some point he'd realized that he'd left out the E, and they were idly looking forward to this modest entertainment. You ever been to sea, Sarge? Said Nobby. Ha! Not me, said the sergeant. Don't go flogging the oggin, lad. I don't, said Nobby. I have never flogged any oggin. Never in my entire life have I flogged oggin. Right. I've always been very clean in that respect. Except you don't know what flogging the oggin means, do you? No, Sarge. It means going to sea. You can't bloody trust the sea. When I was a little lad, I had this book about this little kid. He turned into a mermaid, sort of thing, and he lived down the bottom of the sea. The oggin? Right. And it was all nice, talking fishes and pink seashells and stuff. And then I went on my holidays to Quirm, and I saw the sea, and I thought, here goes. And if our ma hadn't been quick on her feet, I don't know what would have happened. I mean, the kid in the book could breathe under the sea, so how was I to know? It's all bloody lies about the sea. It's just all yuck with lobsters in it. My mum's uncle was a sailor, said Nobby, but after the big plague, he got press-ganged. Bunch of farmers got him drunk. He woke up next morning tied to a plough. They lounged some more. Looks like we're going to be in a fight, Sarge, said Nobby, as the painter very carefully started on the final K. Won't last long. Lots of cowards, the Klatchians, said Cullen. The moment they taste a bit of cold steel, they're legging it away over the sand. Sergeant Cullen had had a broad education. He'd been to the school of, my dad always said, the college of It Stands to Reason, and was now a postgraduate student at the University of what some bloke in the pub told me. Shouldn't be any trouble to sort out then, said Nobby. And of course, they're not the same colour as what we are, said Cullen. Well, as me, anyway, he added, in view of the various hues of corporal knobs. There was probably no one alive who was the same colour as Corporal Nobbs. Constable Visit's pretty brown, said Nobby. I never seen him run away. If there's a chance of giving someone a religious pamphlet, old Waspot's after them like a terrier. Ah, but Omnians are more like us, said Cullen. Bit weird, but basically just the same as us underneath. No, the way you can tell a Klatchian is, you look and see if he uses a lot of words beginning with AL, right? 'Cause that's a dead giveaway. They invented all the words starting with AL. That's how you can see, that's how you can tell they're Klatchian. Like alcohol, see? They invented beer? Yeah, that's clever. I wouldn't call it clever, said Sergeant Cullen, realizing too late that he'd made a tactical error. More luck, I'd say. What else did they do? Well, there's... Cullen racked his brains. There's algebra. That's like sums with letters for people whose brains aren't clever enough for numbers, see? Is that a fact? Right, said Cullen. In fact, he went on, a little more assertively now. He could see a way ahead. I heard this wizard down the university say that the Klatchians invented nothing. That was their great contribution to maths, he said. I said, what? And he said, they came up with 0. Don't sound that clever to me, said Nobby. Anyone could invent nothing. I ain't invented anything. My point exactly, said Cullen. I told him it was people who invented numbers like 4 and 7, right, who were the geniuses. Nothing didn't need inventing, it was just there. They probably just found it. It's having all that desert, said Nobby. Right, good point. Desert, which, as everyone knows, is basically nothing. Nothing's a natural resource to them. It stands to reason. Whereas we're more civilized, see? And we got a lot more stuff around to count. So we invented numbers. It's like, they say that Klatchians invented astronomy. Altronomy? Said Nobby helpfully. No, Nobby. I reckon they discovered S's by then. Probably nicked them off of us. Anyway, they were bound to invent astronomy, 'cause there's bugger all else for them to look at but the sky. Anyone can look at the stars and give them names. It's going it a bit to call it inventing in any case. We don't go around saying we've invented something just because we had a quick deco at it. I heard where they've got a lot of odd gods, said Nobby. Yeah, and mad priests, said Cullen, foaming at the mouth. Half of them believe all kinds of loony things. They watched the painter in silence for a moment. Cullen was dreading the question that came. So how exactly are they different from ours then? Said Nobby. I mean, some of our priests are. I hope you ain't being unpatriotic, said Cullen severely. No, of course not. I was just asking. I can see where they'd be a lot worse than ours, being foreign and everything. And of course they're all mad for fighting, said Cullen. Vicious buggers with all those curvy swords of theirs. You mean like they viciously attack you while cowardly running away after tasting cold steel? Said Nobby, who sometimes had a treacherously good memory for detail. You can't trust them, like I said, and they burp hugely after meals. Well, so do you, Sarge. Yes, but I don't pretend it's polite, Nobby. Well, it's certainly a good job there's you around to explain things, Sarge, said Nobby. It's amazing the stuff you know. I surprise myself sometimes, said Cullen modestly. The painter of the ship leaned back to admire his work. They heard him give a heartfelt little groan, and both of them nodded in satisfaction. Hostage negotiations were always tricky, Carrot had learned. It paid not to rush things. Let the other man talk when he was ready. So he was willing away the time sitting behind the upturned cart. Sitting behind the upturned cart they were using as a shield from the occasional random arrow, and writing his letter home. The exercise was carried out with much frowning. Sucking of the pencil, and what Commander Vimes called a ballistic approach to spelling and punctuation. Dear Mum and Dad, I hope this letter finds you in good health, as I am also. Thank you for the big parcel of dwarf bread you sent me. I have shared it with the other dwarves on the watch. They say it is better even than iron crufts. Open parenthesis, tea bread we tej. Close parenthesis. And you can't beat the taste of a home-forged loaf. So well done, Mum. Things are going well with the wolf pack that I have told you about, but Commander Vimes is not happy. I told him they were good lads at heart, and it would help them to learn the ways of nature and the wilderness, and he said, "Ha, they know them already. That is the trouble." But he gave me $5 to buy a football, which proves he cares deep down. We have more faces in the watch, which is just as well with this trouble with Klatch. It is all looking very grave. I feel it is the calm. I feel it is the clam before the storm, and no mistake. I must break off now because some robbers have broke into Vortin's diamond warehouse and have taken Corporal Angua hostage. I fear there may be terrible bloodshed, so I remain your loving son, Carrot Iron Founderson, Captain. P.S. I will write again tomorrow. Carrot folded the letter carefully and slipped it under his breastplate. I think they have had long enough to consider our suggestion, Constable. What's next on the list? Constable Shoe leafed through a file of grubby paper and pulled out another sheet. Well, we're down to offences of stealing pennies off blind beggars now, he said. Oh, no, this is a good one. Carrot took the sheet in one hand and megaphone in the other, and raised his head carefully over the edge of the cart. Good morning again, he said brightly. We've found another one. Theft of jewelry from... Yes, we did it, shouted a voice from the building. Really? I haven't even said what it was yet, said Carrot. Never mind. We did it! Now can we come out, please? There was another sound behind the voice. It sounded like a low, continuous growl.
I think you ought to be able to tell me what you stole,
said Carrot. Rings? Gold rings?
Sorry, no rings mentioned.
Pearl necklace? Yes, that's what.
Getting warmer, but no.
Earrings?
Ooh, you're so close,
said Carrot encouragingly. A crown, was it? Maybe a coronet? Carrot leaned down to the constable. Says here a tiara, Reg. Can we let... He stood up.
We're prepared to accept coronet. Well done.
He looked down at Constable Shoe again. This is all right, isn't it, Reg? It's not coercion, is it? Can't see how it can be, Captain. I mean, they broke in. They took a hostage. I suppose you're right. Please, no! Good boy! Down! Seems to be about it, sir, said Reg Shoe, peering around the edge of the cart. We've got them down for everything but the Hyde Park flasher. We did that! Screamed someone. And that was a woman. We did it! This time the voice was a lot higher. Now please, can we come out? Carrot stood up and raised the megaphone.
If you gentlemen would care to step out with your hands up.
Are you joking? Whimpered someone against the background of another growl.
Well, at least with your hands where I can see them.
You bet, mister! 4 men stumbled out into the street. Their torn clothing fluttered in the breeze. The apparent leader pointed an angry finger back at the doorway as Carrot walked towards them. The owner of that place ought to be prosecuted, he shouted. Keeping a wild animal like that in his strong room, it's disgraceful. We broke in perfectly peacefully and it just attacked us for no reason at all. You shot at Constable Shoe here, said Carrot. Only to miss. Only to miss. Constable Shoe pointed at the arrow sticking into his breastplate. Right where it shows, he complained. It's a welding job, and we have to pay for our own armor repairs, and there'll always be a mark, you know, no matter what I do. Their horrified gaze took in the stitch marks around his neck and on his hands, and it dawned on them that, although the human race came in a variety of colors, very few living people were grey with a hint of green. Here, you're a zombie! That's right. Kick a man when he's dead, said Constable Shoe sharply. And you took Corporal Angua hostage. A lady, said Carrot in the same level voice. It was very polite, but it simply suggested that somewhere a fuse was burning, and it would be a good idea not to wait for it to reach the barrel. Yes, sort of. But she must have got away when that creature turned up. So, you left her in there? Said Carrot, still very calm. The men dropped to their knees. The leader raised his hand imploringly. Please, we're just robbers and thieves. We're not bad men. Carrot nodded to Constable Shoe. Take them down to the yard, Constable. Right, said Reg. There was a mean look in his eye as he cocked his crossbow. I'm down $10, thanks to you, so you'd better not try to escape. No, sir, not us. Carrot wandered into the gloom of the building. Fearful faces peered out of doorways. He gave them a reassuring smile as he walked towards the strong room. Corporal Angua was adjusting her uniform. "I didn't bite anyone before you start," she said, as he appeared in the doorway. "Not even flesh wounds. I just tore at their trousers, and that was no bed of roses, I might add." A frightened face appeared round the door. "Ah, Mr. Vortin," said Carrot. "I think you will find that all is in order. They seem to have dropped everything." The diamond merchant looked at him in amazement. "But they had a hostage." "They saw the error of their ways," said Carrot. And there were snarling noises. Sounded like a wolf." "Ah, yes," said Carrot. "Well, you know, when thieves fall out," which was no kind of explanation, but because the tone of voice suggested that it was, Mr. Vortin accepted it as such for fully 5 minutes after Carrot and Angua had left. "Well, that's a nice start to the day," said Carrot. "Thank you. Yes, I wasn't hurt," said Angua. "It makes it all seem worthwhile somehow. Just my hair messed up and another shirt ruined. Well done. Sometimes I might suspect that you don't listen to anything I say," said Angua. "Glad to hear it," said Carrot. The entire watch was mustering. Vimes looked down at the sea of faces. "My gods," he thought, "how many have we got now? A few years ago you could count the watch on the fingers of a blind butcher's hand, and now there's more coming in." He leaned sideways to Captain Carrot. "Who are all these people?" "Watchmen, sir. You appointed them." "Did I? I haven't even met some of them." "You signed the paperwork, sir, and you sign the wage bill every month. Eventually." There was a hint of criticism in his voice. Vimes's approach to paperwork was not to touch it until someone was shouting, and then at least there would be someone to help him sort through the stacks. "But how did they join?" "Usual way, sir. Swore them in, gave them each a helmet." "Hey, that's Red Shoe. He's a zombie. He falls to bits all the time." "Very big man in the undead community, sir," said Carrot. "How come he joined?" "He came round last week to complain about the watch harassing some boogeymen, sir. He was very, vehement, sir, so I persuaded him that what the watch needed was some expertise. So he joined up, sir." "No more complaints?" "Twice as many, sir. All from undead, sir, and all against Mr. Shoe." "Funny that." Vimes gave his captain a sideways look. "He's very hurt about it, sir. He says he's found that the undead just don't understand the difficulties of policing in a multi-vital society, sir." "Good gods," thought Vimes. "That's just what I would have done. But I'd have done it because I'm not a nice person. Carrot is a nice person. He's practically got medals for it. Surely he wouldn't have." And he knew that he would never know. Somewhere behind Carrot's innocent stare was a steel door. "You enrolled him, did you?" "No, sir. You did, sir. You signed his joining orders and his chitty and his posting orders, sir." Vimes had another vision of too many documents, hurriedly signed, but he must have signed them, and they needed the men, true enough. It was just that it ought to be him who... "And anyone of sergeant rank or above can recruit, sir," said Carrot, as if reading his mind. It's in the general orders, page 22, sir, just below the T stain. And you've recruited how many? Oh, just 1 or 2. We're still very short-handed, sir. We are with Reg. His arm keeps falling off. Aren't you going to talk to the men, sir? Vimes looked at the assembled. Well, multitude. There was no other word. Well, there were plenty, but none that it would be fair to use. Big ones, short ones, fat ones, troll ones with the lichen still on, bearded dwarf ones, the looming pottery presence of the golem constable Doleful, undead ones, and even now he wasn't certain if that term should include Corporal Angua, an intelligent girl and a very useful werewolf when she had to be. Waifs and strays, Colin had said once. Waifs and bloody strays, because normal people wouldn't be coppers. Technically, they were all in uniform too, except that mostly they weren't wearing the same uniform as anyone else. Everyone had just been sent down to the armory to collect whatever fitted, and the result was a walking historical exhibit. Funny-shaped helmets through the ages. Ladies and gentlemen, he began. Be quiet, please, and listen to Commander Vimes, bellowed Carrot. Vimes found himself meeting the gaze of Angua, who was leaning against the wall. She rolled her eyes helplessly. Yes, thank you, Captain, said Vimes. He turned back to the massed array of Ankh-Morpork's finest. He opened his mouth. He stared, and then he shut his mouth, all but a corner of it, and said out of that corner, What's that little lump on Constable Flint's head? That's probationary Constable Buggy Squire, sir. He likes to get a good view. He's a gnome. Well done, sir. Another one of yours. Ours, sir, said Carrot, using his reproachful voice again. Yes, sir. Attached to the Chitterling Street station since last week, sir. Oh my God, murmured Vimes. Buggy Squire saw his stare and saluted. He was 5 inches tall. Vimes regathered his mental balance. The long and the short and the tall, waifs and strays, all of us. I'm not going to keep you long, he said. You all know me. Well, most of you know me, he added with a sidelong glance at Carrot. And I don't make speeches. But I'm sure all of you have noticed the way this Lesp business has got people all stirred up. There's a lot of loose talk about war. Well, war isn't our business. War is soldiers' business. Our business, I think, is to keep the peace. Let me show you this. He stood back and pulled something out of his pocket with a flourish. At least that was the intention. There was a rip as something ceased to be entangled in the lining. Damn! Ah! He produced a length of shiny black wood from the ragged pocket. There was a large silver knob at the end. The watchman craned to look. This, Vimes groped. This old man turned up from the palace a couple of weeks ago. Gave me this damn thing. Got a label saying, Regalia of the Watch Commander, City of Ankh-Morpork. You know they never throw anything away up at the palace. He waved it vaguely. The wood was surprisingly heavy. It's got the coat of arms on the knob. Look. 30 watchmen tried to see. And I thought, Good grief, this is what I'm supposed to carry. And I thought about it, and then I thought, no, that's right. Just once, someone got it right. It's not even a weapon, it's just a thing. It ain't for using, it's just for having. That's what it's all about. Same thing with uniforms. You see a soldier's uniform, it's to turn him into part of a crowd of other parts, all in the same uniform. But a copper's uniform is there too. Vimes stopped. Perplexed expressions in front of him told him that he was building a house of cards with too few cards on the bottom. He coughed. Anyway, he went on with a glare to indicate that everyone should forget the previous 20 seconds. Our job is to stop people fighting. There's a lot happening on the street. You've probably heard that they're starting up the regiments again. Well, people can recruit if they like. But we're not going to have any mobs. There's a nasty mood around. I don't know what's going to happen, but we've got to be there when it does. He looked around the room. Another thing. This new Klatchian envoy, or whatever he's called, is arriving tomorrow. I don't think the Assassins' Guild has anything planned, but tonight we're going to check the route the Wizards' possession will be taking. A nice little job for the night shift. And tonight we're all on the night shift. There was a groan from the watch. Oh. As my old sergeant used to say, if you can't take a joke, you shouldn't have joined, said Vimes. A nice, gentle, door-to-door inspection, shaking hands with doorknobs, giving the uniform a bit of an airing. Good old-fashioned policing. Any questions? Good. Thank you very much. There was a general rustling and relaxing among the squad as it dawned on them that they were free to go. Carrot started to clap. It wasn't the clap used by middlings to encourage underlings to applaud overlings. Side note 1. The palms are held at right angles to one another and flapped together rather than clapped, while the flapper stares intently at the audience as if to say, we're going to have some applause here or else the whole school is in detention. End side note 1. Carrot started to clap. It wasn't the clap used by middlings to encourage underlings to applaud overlings. It had genuine enthusiasm behind it, which was somehow worse. A couple of the more impressionable new constables picked it up, and then, in the same way that little pebbles lead the avalanche, the sound of humanoids banging their heads together filled the room. Vimes glowered. Very inspiring, sir, said Carrot, as the clapping rose to a storm.